Hi, welcome back to Taji's World of Books, and welcome to another book recommendation video. Hey you guys, welcome back. So I am here again to talk about the next installment of Diana Gabaldon's The Outlander series. This is book 6. And this is A Breath of Snow and Ash. It's kind of shiny, so you can't really see it, so I'm not going to hold it up. So this is a continuation of the story, and I wanted to really think about, so this is going to contain spoilers. So if you haven't read the beginning books, at this point, if I haven't convinced you to read it, at this point, I'm not sure that you will. But it's a really amazing historical fiction series that really takes place over the course of living life in the 1700s, basically. And now we have moved to, in A Breath of Snow and Ash, we are really on Fraser Ridge, where the early American settlers in North Carolina were Scottish Highlanders. And we're looking at a particular branch of the settlers that are part of the Fraser clan. Many of them were in Asmere prison with Jamie. They were part of the Jacobite Rising. I had to go and look up what the Jacobite is. And a Jacobite basically is part of the succession planning. So who legitimately sits on the heir. And the Bonnie Prince Charles is, you know, when you do like Elizabeth I and Mary Queen of Scots, and the whole fight about who really should have been the queen, and the Mary Queen of Scots had a son, and her son's name was James, and Elizabeth I didn't have any living heirs, and that's after, remember the whole split with Reformation and with King Henry VIII, and so we know Elizabeth is the daughter of Anne Boleyn and Henry VIII, and so there's that whole division, right? So Elizabeth's line ended because she had no heirs, so the throne went to Mary Stuart, or Mary Queen of Scots' son James, and he became the first, James I, ruler of both Scotland and England, and united the kingdoms. So from there, then there is another split, and the Bonnie Prince Charles is sort of on this path, and if you follow the Jacobites and who really should have been the legitimate king, and who actually sits on the throne now, which is the House of Windsor, and where we see William and Charles and all of that coming together. And so you can go and research that, which I had to do because I was like, what the heck is a Jacobite? I need to know what this really means. And so basically it's about succession. It's always about who is legitimately sitting on the throne. And I think actually in Prince William is really a melding then of the bloodlines, where it really truly is that he has both bloodlines and is like legitimately both houses and is legitimately like the true heir if one was really going to continue to argue and if you were truly going to still be a Jacobite. And somebody's probably going to say I'm wrong. That's not why we're here. We're here to talk about this book. So, you know, those that were Jacobites, they basically were sent to the colonies after Asmere prison, and Jamie sort of brings them all together, and we basically see their day-to-day life. And we see day-to-day life with Claire and Jamie. We see with Marsley and with Fergus. We also see with Brianna and with Brianna and Roger and what that all is coming to be. We see a number of sort of conflicts and resolutions. I have to say the one thing that I was the most surprised about and really liked is the Beardsley Twins and Lizzie's story in here. That was really fascinating, and to see how that all sort of came about and to see how it's viewed. Again, and I spent a lot of time thinking about, because Claire spends a lot of time, and I'm going to talk about my feelings about Claire in a bit, but I spent a lot of time thinking about how I see things versus how Claire sees things versus how the 17th century people of that time see things. And Claire sort of looks at like everything that they do as like kind of like backwards and like how dare you. But Claire's got some really judgmental stance and ideas about things, because when I hear what happens with the Beardsley twins and the fact that, you know, Lizzie basically, they're in a menage. They basically are all together and they're like and sharing, and they have a child together, and they don't know which of the twins it is that has fathered the children. And Jamie and Claire try to push Lizzie into marrying one of them because they're like, you can't have them both. And Claire's like, how dare you do this? And I'm just like, I could come back and judge you, because to me, having a menage is like not that big of a deal. I'm like, whatever you want to do, as long as you, so like thinking evolves, and you know, I don't think that there's a lot of, Claire allows a lot of room for that kind of evolution thinking, as long as it's consistent with her evolution of thinking. I'm gonna get into that in a minute. But I love the twins. There also is some really heavy, hard-hitting stuff. Fergus is like struggling, you know, Marsley is pregnant again. Fergus, we know, has lost his hand during the time right before Jamie went to Admir's prison, and he was living in the cave for those 7 years, and they were, you know, harboring him as a fugitive, and that's when they called him the Dun Bonnet. And that's the time when you had regulators and you had Scottish, you know, that joined the ranks with the British Army and sort of patrolled the Scottish Highlands and really destroyed the clans. That's when Fergus lost his hand, and so now they're living as farmers, and Fergus is like, I cannot support my family. I can't. Marsley has to do everything, and Brianna sort of sees some stuff that she thinks that Fergus is abusing Marsley, so they get all involved in stuff. There's a lot of sort of, everybody knows everything about what everybody is doing, and I hate that. That's one of my kind of pet peeves, but you know, they live on a ridge, and you know, that's like what small town life is like. And so when they find out what's going on, you know, they try to really step in and help. And ultimately, I don't like how it was done, but ultimately how it worked out is that Fergus was sent to North Carolina, was sent to Wilmington to go back into the printing business, and that turned out to be a very good option for him. But the baby that Marsley has in this turns out to be a dwarf. And it is really, really fascinating how those 17th century beliefs, and how when a baby was born a dwarf, you know, they were basically sold into prostitution for people that had certain types of sexual predilections. And he's like, it's no life, you know, no life for them. And Jamie and Claire are like, we would never let the Baron want for anything. And he's like, the problem is that you don't live forever, and I don't live forever, but this Baron will. And this Baron will have to figure out life, and what will that be like for him. And Fergus legitimately is concerned for his son. And so, you know, they dealt with some heavy, heavy, heavy stuff. And ultimately it culminated with Fergus wanting to harm himself, and like not wanting to live because, you know, feeling like I can't protect my family. You know, then we've also got, so that was like Fergus and Marsley sort of stuff that my heart was going out to. And we still are dealing with Roger and Brianna's kind of struggle about whether or not Jemmy is ultimately Stephen Bonnet's, or if Jemmy belongs to Roger, and will Jemmy be able to go back through the stones, and what is that like? And that all culminates in this book, and it is amazing how they did it. And there is another pregnancy for Brianna, and you have to read that to figure all that out, but it is amazing how that was done. And Stephen Bonnet does come back and kidnaps Brianna again, and there is another pregnancy, and there's another question around that, but it was handled very clearly, and I loved how it was done. And the Bonnet situation is finally been put to bed. And it was interesting to think about the dynamics of Stephen Bonnet and Brianna, and even though she hates him for what he's done to her, how she treats him and how they interact, it's very interesting. And she also addresses the very thing that I said, and I felt vindicated, because I felt like I was like a little bit crazy, because I was like, I feel bad saying that Bonnet's not a bad guy. He raped her, check it. He's not like, he has to have a modicum of something, because he saved her from the burning warehouse in the last book, in the Fiery Cross, and he gave her the diamond, the black diamond, to take care of Jemmy. He was like, that's for the Baron, and make sure the Baron basically is raised well. And so Brianna even says, he can't be that, I know he did all these awful things, but he did do these things, so he's got to be somewhat of a good guy, right? And then the prostitute's like, no, he's not. He's just a bad guy. And it's very interesting when it comes down to his death, he says to her, I knew you'd come. And so there's just this weird dynamic with them. It's very, very interesting how that was handled, and I thought it was really great and really well done. So let's come to, let's see. So in the different couples, I talked about Marsley and Fergus. Ian is back on the scene. Ian has had and gone through some difficulties and trials and tribulations whilst he was in with the Cherokees, or the Mohawks rather, and he's back on the scene, and nobody really knows why and nobody really addresses it, but ultimately he does have a conversation with Brianna and explains what happened, and that is a fascinating story. I want to see his character evolve and develop more, and I hope as we go into the Echo of Bones that we find out more about his character. Okay, so then Jamie and Claire. So some really tragic things happen to Claire, and Claire is abducted, and she is taken, and just some really bad things happen to her. She's assaulted and multiple times, and you know, Claire is a complicated character. Let me say this, and this is going to be unpopular, and I'm okay with it because I don't have to like everything, right? I have decided that I don't like Claire. And here's why I don't like her. Here's where I struggle. Be independent. Be fierce. Be all of those things. Handle your business. Don't tell me what to do. I can figure it out on my own. Cool. But don't do it at the expense of others. Don't put others at risk because of your unwillingness and your pig-headedness and your unwillingness to listen to feedback from others, and then expect to be rescued and then get mad at Jamie when he doesn't. And don't think that you're going to be the expert on everything. Like, I think Claire is, everything for her is, I'm a doctor. I'm a doctor. Well, okay, I'm going to build a house. I'm a doctor. What the hell does that have to do with the price of tea in China? You're a doctor, so what? Like, you're a doctor. Okay, we get it. We get it. You're a healer and you're very talented. But that does not mean that you're an expert in everything. And so, and I guess maybe it's set up that like Jamie has become the laird, right? Like, he's the laird of Fraser Ridge, right? And so it's his responsibility to kind of oversee and settle all of the drama that happens on the hill. I get it. But she doesn't take, it's almost like, in my opinion, it's her job to settle these affairs. And she does it at the expense of other people and expects everybody to give in to what she wants regardless of what she wants. And she goes into like boss mode with everything. And I don't know, I just don't like her. I don't like what she does. Like, I think she puts Jamie at risk, and I think everybody has to kind of jump to go and save her. And I just didn't have a lot of sympathy, and I felt so bad because I'm like, here, this woman nobody deserves that. But I'm like, there's so many times that you've done and got yourself into trouble that I'm just like, because you can't keep your mouth shut, there's a place and a time for it all. And I think Brianna has inherited that from her. Like, I was really bothered in here when Brianna sees Willie for the first time, her brother, that is her illegitimate brother, that's by, you know, when he was at Hellwater by Geneva. And so now he is the 9th Earl of Ellesmere, or whatever, Earlsmere, or whatever. He's the 9th Earl of something. And Brianna sees him, and she sees Lord John, and she starts to question Lord John about the details of her father's life. Number one, that's your father's private affair, so I don't see how it's any of your business, number one. Number two, you don't get to judge people based on stuff that you don't understand and don't know. And again, you're coming with this, you know, 1971 mindset that's like, why can't they get married? And did he do this while he was with my mother? And then she's like, well, I'm going to tell Willie because he has the right to know. Who the hell are you? You don't have that right. Like, the people that are involved that are most affected by this, which is your mother, your father, Lord John, they all know about this, and they've held this secret for 18 years for a reason. Stay the hell out of it, Brianna. And the fact that I have to make a deal with you to like allow you to see him one more time, that's selfishness. That's all based on what you want and what you think is good for you, and not how it's going to impact other people. And I think that's the biggest thing that bothers me about Claire. Claire is like, I'm going to heal you, and I'm going to do this, and you need to, and like when Lizzie says that she wants to be with both of the brothers, and Claire is like, oh, come now. I'm like, well, wait, you're being judgmental, because in my mind, I'm like, if you guys want to be together and you guys are off in the back country in your own cabin doing your own thing, have at it. And so, like, that really bothered me about Claire. I was just like, you don't get to judge, and you don't get to make decisions for other people, and you don't get to make the decisions that you want because it's what you think is right, and you're going to impose your will on other people, and that bugs the shit out of me. I don't like it. And the other thing that happened, I think, in this book that really, really irritated me is that she's like, I took a Hippocratic oath, and I am a doctor, and I heal people above all things, and I'm going to do, regardless of what anybody thinks, I'm going to heal this person, and whether you want them to be healed or not, and I just can't let a person die. And so you put people at risk to heal this person, and then all hell breaks loose, and everybody else has to deal with the outcome and aftermath of what you've done. But if you hold to your doctoring standards, right, and your Hippocratic oath, what about ethics? What about confidentiality? What about privacy? So, like, for example, when one of the guys, and it was Jimmy Higgins, I think, it was the manservant of Lord John, who's basically coming back and forth, and he has gotten himself into, he's a very handsome guy, he's gotten himself into a love triangle with Lizzie, with Malva, and with some other chick on the hill. And to make a long story short, they find out because he slept with a prostitute, and he didn't realize that she was a prostitute or whatever, she gave him syphilis, right? And Claire learns about this. And what does Claire do? She goes and tells everybody. And I'm just like, bitch, did you just go and tell everybody on the ridge that this dude had syphilis? And you didn't do it to protect their health. Like, you just basically shared it with Brianna, you shared it with Jamie, so I'm like, so you operate in a 20th century mindset about being a doctor, and everybody has the right to care, and I'm gonna heal people, and I'm gonna do the right thing, and I'm gonna but then you're gonna go and ruin this dude's life, and now he's like ostracized. His parents don't want to talk to him. Now, granted, it probably would have gotten out anyway, but I'm pissed off at you that you did that, because you talk about highest standards and holding people to regard. I'm gonna hold you to that same damn standard. And matter of fact, I'm gonna hold you to the standard that we operate in right now in 2021, because you hold everybody in the 1700s to the 1968 standards. I'm holding you to the 2021 standards, and you don't do that. So, and on that topic, you're actually practicing without a license, and you shouldn't be practicing medicine without being so petty. This is ridiculous. It's a fictional character. And so I guess when I was there and I was reading, and I was like, you know what? I don't like her. And I'm okay with that, because I love everybody else. I really like Jamie, and I think that Jamie tries the best that he can to protect his family, to protect his land, to protect the people on Fraser Ridge, to be a really good laird. He makes very good decisions. He's like, they've raised a beautiful family. And when Claire gets out of that craziness that she gets into, and that pig-headed, stubborn, I'm gonna do what I wanna do regardless, and she's there with her family, and she's there with Jamie, I love her. I love her relationship. I like how she is as a mother. I think that all is grand and wonderful. I love, how Roger's character has evolved, and how they become, Jamie and Roger have become friends. And it's just, again, it's really a beautiful, beautiful story. And I love the historical underpinnings, and I love to take pause, go research, figure out how that really came into play, and really thinking wow, if I really flew through the stones and was back in the early 1700s with settlers, would I know history? Would I know what Paul Revere said? Would I know what happened when it started? Would I know the different battles? Would I be of use? What would I do? What would that be like? And I get that it's a complicated, difficult life, arduous, and it's a struggle. But the fact that I could talk this much about this book, one book in general, with all of the complexities that it brings in and all the feelings that this book brings up for me as I'm experiencing it, this Diana Gabaldon is a very phenomenal writer. She's a phenomenal writer that has written a really interesting tale, and she's a great storyteller. She's just great. And I love how this book ended. I love that we are coming full circle. I love that questions are being resolved and answered, firmed up, and new things are coming in. And I love that we're getting to see, because Jamie and Claire now have been married for over 30 years, right? And so we're following their trajectory and their path and what that's like. And so now, as it stands, we are ending with Claire and Jamie going back to Scotland, and Brianna and Roger are at Lollybrook, right, in an epilogue, and we're seeing the next phase and the final phase of how this ends. And so I'm going into, so now I have Echo in the Bone to read, and then I have Blood of, I think it's called Blood of My Blood, I think is book 8. And then we're waiting for the bees in book 9. And so I think, I'll finish up 8 like literally days before 9 comes out, and it'll be fresh in my mind. And I am 100% happy. In all of my complaints and all of my, like, you know, ranting or whatever, I am thoroughly enjoying it and really happy. And because I'm so invested in these characters, I want them to be the best, and I want them to operate at the highest standards. And I get that we're all flawed, and that's what this is demonstrating, is that we are all flawed, and we all have really amazing qualities, and we also have qualities that we can work on and that we can address. And that's what these characters are. They're complicated, they're complex. We make decisions in situations, sometimes good and sometimes not so good, you know, and we have to check ourselves, and we need to have people around us that love us and that care for us, that'll check us, right, and help us to keep it in perspective so that we don't lose who we are, you know, in the face of everything that's going on. And so, having said that, the war has broken out, and we are, you know, right in the beginning of the American Revolution, and they're going back to Scotland, but they're going to come back to fight, and we are going to live to see another day, and we're going to start Echo in the Bones tonight. I'm going to start it, matter of fact, as soon as I get this video edited and uploaded. And that is all that I have for today. So you guys, please hit the like button. Please come hang out with me more. You know, I upload new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, but you can always hit the bell notification button to find out when I am uploading. And that is all that I have for today. And I hope to see you next time in my next video. Bye, guys.